When ash still smolders. There's a truth Greek mythology rarely dares to say aloud. After the Titanomachy, the 10-year war between the new gods and the ancient Titans, not all fires of rebellion were extinguished. On Mount Olympus, Zeus and his siblings believed they had triumphed completely, casting every dissenter into the depths of Tartarus. But in the world's deepest cracks, in the eternal shadow of the abyss, some Titans still growled, still seethed, still waited. The rebellion didn't end with Titanomachy. There was one last surge. A desperate counterstrike. While the young gods toasted their hard-won glory, the earth trembled once more, carrying with it rage, despair, and a vengeance that had never died. This is the tale mythology seldom tells, the Titans' final uprising, where hatred rose higher than Mount Othrys, where the defeated stood again, not just to reclaim a throne, but to prove that light can never banish all darkness. Join me. The war isn't over. After Titanomachy, the survivors and the oaths in shadow. If you believe the Titanomachy, the cataclysmic war between the gods and the Titans, marked the end of an era, you're right, but only partially. Yes, Zeus won. Wielding thunder in his fist, he struck down his devouring father, Cronus, and cast the rebel Titans into Tartarus, a pit deeper than the underworld, darker than the void before creation.
Olympus rose prouenne d'un challenge above the sky. Zeus, Poséidon, and Hades divided the cosmos like a game board.
But history, especially in mythology, never stays silent for long.
In the shadow, beyond the reach of divine chant, the survivors endured.
They still breathed. They still hated. Iapetus, one of the eldest Titans, was never bound like the others. He didn't fight in the final days. Most remember him merely as the father of Prometheus, the firebringer punished by Zeus. But Iapetus was more than a father. He was a strategist, a master of patience. When his son Atlas was forced to hold up the sky like some divine coat hook, Iapetus didn't rage. He disappeared into the snow-covered peaks, clenched his shame between his teeth, and waited. From that silence, hatred took root, like ancient roots twisting through stone, waiting to rise. Then there was Ophion, a Titan few speak of, yet once ruler of the heavens beside Eurynomy, long before Cronus seized power. When Cronus overthrew him, Ophion fell deep. But you know what happens to those who fall into darkness? They listen. They remember. They sharpen their claws. To Ophion, Zeus was nothing but a new Cronus, just as greedy, just as tyrannical, just as worthy of overthrow. And what of Themis, Titaness of divine law? She did not rebel, but no one knew where her heart truly leaned.
She forged the order of the universe itself.
Now that order rested in the hands of Zeus, a god who loved more than he ruled.
How can justice stand when the one holding the scale break every rule?
So it began, a silent web, spun between the forgotten and the fallen.
No war drum. No battle cry. Only whisper.
Meetings in the dark, on peaks no mortal has climbed, beneath earth no god has touched, and deep within hearts that bled vengeance like lifeblood.
The world called it conspiracy.
But to them? It was justice long denied. An oath, to avenge an era that had been buried alive. And now perhaps, it stirs again. When monsters and titans joined hands, the rise of the Dark Alliance.
No kingdom lasts forever, and the Titans knew it well.
If Zeus had Olympus above, they had Tartarus below, the deepest layer of existence, where light dares not reach and even souls fear to whisper its name. There, hatred became a weapon. And pain gave birth to strange alliances. The first to answer the summons from the shadows was not a Titan, but a creature.
A storm of fury incarnate, Typhon.
Typhon was no Titan. He was something else. Born of Gaia, Mother Earth, and Tartarus, the abyss, Typhon was Gaia's rage made flesh, her vengeance for the children she birthed and watched be cast into darkness. 100 serpent heads, each spewing poison winds. He towered to the heavens, arms stretching from east to west. His roar shook mountains and silenced gods. He wasn't just a monster, he was war walking. And he accepted the call. But Typhon alone wasn't enough. They needed unity. Strategy. And so, the forgotten returned.
Echidna, half woman, half serpent, mother of monsters like Cerberus, Hydra, Chimera.
If heroes ever faced those beasts, she was their womb. And Echidna had not forgiven the gods for slaying her children. Cottus, Briareus, and Gyges, the Centimanes, 100-armed, 50-headed giants once freed by Zeus to fight the Titans, only to be discarded like tools of war. Now they faced a choice: serve a thankless king, or rise with the betrayed. Prometheus, chained to stone, his liver torn daily by an eagle, still burned with fire for mankind. No one knew his thoughts. But he defied Zeus once. And if there were a second time, he could be the key. Thus, an unholy alliance took shape.
Titan, Monster, Ancien Beast.
The exiled.
Nos banners flew. Nos horns sounded.
But the earth began to tremble. The groans of Tartarus became a call. And the ground began to crack.
Olympus may be sleeping.
But the nightmare is waking. The final counterattack, when Olympus trembled. No one knew exactly what happened first. Some said black smoke billowed from the base of Mount Etna, as if 1,000 volcanoes erupted at once. Others swore they heard a monstrous roar rising from deep within the earth, not the crack of Zeus's thunder, but the voice of Mother Earth herself, Gaia, awakening. And then, Typhon appeared. He didn't sneak in. He didn't need an army. He rose, as if mountains were pillows and the sky was a low ceiling he had simply outgrown. 100 serpent heads, each speaking in a different tongue, each singing a song of war. Every step he took shattered valleys. Every breath, a windstorm of venom. No one had ever seen a creature so terrifying, and so theatrically bold. At first, Zeus remained relaxed on his throne. Just another beast, he scoffed, raising a cup of ambrosia. I've defeated Kronos, haven't I? But when Mount Olympus itself began to quake, as if a toddler god was playing chair games with the divine summit, Zeus's smirk froze. Poseidon roared from the sea, waves towering like fortresses, but even the oceans trembled. A bad omen. Athena gripped her spear tighter. For the first time, a flicker of doubt crossed her eyes. She had never faced an enemy that couldn't be reasoned with, couldn't be outthought. Apollo's golden lyre fell silent for the first time in his immortal life. The battle erupted, not like the prolonged Titanomachy of years past, but as a monstrous storm of pure chaos and fury. Zeus, lord of the cosmos, thunder and command. Zeus leapt into battle without hesitation, calling upon the oldest bolts of thunder, the very weapons that ended Kronos' reign. Each strike tore the sky apart, lashing fire into Typhon's heads. But Typhon was no ordinary titan. What once felled Kronos now merely staggered the beast. Even the fabled threefold thunderbolt, lightning from 3 corners of the sky, burned mountains behind Typhon but barely slowed him. With one devastating blow, Typhon launched Zeus across a forest, setting it ablaze along his trajectory. Eventually, the king of gods was bound, stripped of his thunder, and imprisoned in the Carytian cave, like a fallen hero in exile. Poseidon, god of the sea, tidal wrath and roaring steel. Seeing Zeus fall, Poseidon let loose a storm unlike any seen before. Mounted on his sea chariot, wielding his colossal trident, he pierced the earth itself, summoning a cataclysmic flood. The battlefield drowned in boiling seawater, dragging coral, monsters, and ghost nets into the fray. But Typhon didn't drown, he twisted. From his belly burst monstrous tentacles, slapping Poseidon skyward into the Gulf of Corinth. A salty, bruised defeat. Athena, goddess of wisdom, precision and cold tactics. Athena didn't charge. She calculated. Commanding from the heights, she wielded the Aegis spear, coordinating divine counterstrikes. In one bold maneuver, she hurled a radiant orb into one of Typhon's enormous eyes, blinding him momentarily. The gods surged forward. But minutes later, a snakehead shattered her armor, forcing her retreat to Mount Parnassus. Apollo, god of light, arrows and psychological warfare. Apollo struck from afar, launching radiant arrows into Typhon's joints. Not brute force, but speed, rhythm, precision. At one point, his arrows shone like a comet across the sky. But Typhon, Gaia's son, absorbed solar energy. Soon, he began feeding on Apollo's light, hurling it back as twisted black fire. Wounded, Apollo fled to the woods of Delos. Artemis, goddess of the hunt, shadows and silent strikes. Unlike her brother, Artemis vanished into mist. From the darkness, silver arrows pierced Typhon's weak spots, neck, groin, eyes. She wasn't aiming to win. She aimed to stall. One shot struck his wrist, knocking a mountain-sized boulder from his grip. But when a snakehead snatched her mid-flight, She barely screamed before Athena intervened, saving her from a fatal blow. Hephaestus, god of forge, invention and firecraft. He didn't fight like a warrior, but like a mad genius. Hephaestus unleashed flamethrowers, lightning catapults, and fire traps buried deep in the earth. In one orchestrated strike, he lured Typhon into an oil-soaked crater. Poseidon collapsed the seabed. Athena ignited it. The explosion burned for 3 days and nights. Typhon was gravely wounded, but not dead. Zeus, bound and stripped of his power, lay in a cave in Cilicia. Covered in ash and mud, the ruler of Olympus looked less like a god, and more like a drunken mortal thrown from a tavern brawl. Olympus, without a king. The world, without order. And darkness, once again, tasted victory. Zeus's revenge, when a god refuses to accept his fate. Defeated and chained in a cavern deep within the earth, Zeus was no longer Zeus.
No thunder.
No throne. Just a broken figure shackled by Typhon's serpent-forged bonds. Bonds so dark, even Gaia, Mother Earth herself, could no longer control the beast who forged them. But if you thought Zeus would lie there, weeping and waiting to be rescued like a damsel in distress,
You were wrong. Thunder doesn't die. It merely sleeps. And when the god of storm sleeps, star whisper, wind shift, and tide begin to flow backward.
Prometheus, once punished by Zeus, felt it first, a ripple in the cosmic balance.
Enemy or not, Prometeux understood one thing.
If Olympus truly fell, mankind would fall with it. No dawn. No harvest. No flame. Only chaos. So he did the unthinkable. He sent his old tormentor, the eagle that had devoured his liver for centuries, to deliver a message to Hermes.
Hermès, ever the clever messenger, didn't rush to confront Typhon.
Instead, he sought Cadmus, founder of Thebes and divine descendant, who uncovered the hidden cavern where Zeus lay in silence. And once more, Gaia trembled. But this time, not from wrath. From a counterstrike.
The rescue had begun. Hermès crept into the cave, carrying a secret weapon. A bolt of stormfire, freshly forged by the Cyclope, one final thunderbolt, meant for desperate times.
With Cadmus's aid, the chains were loosened. And Zeus, his eyes blazing like the last light before nightfall, rose. He didn't speak of revenge. He didn't curse the heavens. He simply said, balance must be restored. The final battle began, Zeus versus Typhon.
A war of titanic force.
Atop Mount Etna, believed to be the mouth of the underworld, lightning fell like rain.
Ash and fire spiraled into the sky.
Typhon roared, his serpent head spitting poison. Zeus soared, unleashing bolts that ripped the sky itself. It seemed the heavens and earth might tear apart. But this time, Zeus did not fight alone. Poseidon rose from the sea, hurling waves that surged over Typhon's heels. Athena executed a 1,000-layer strategy, trapping the beast in a maze of illusions. Hermes and Apollo danced with light and speed, slicing through venomous limbs. And in the end, it was Zeus, the once-bound god, who dealt the final blow. With one thunderous strike, he buried Typhon beneath Mount Etna, where the volcano still rumbles to this day. A fiery reminder that the wrath of the Titans has never truly died. The final counterstrike wasn't just a war, it was a lesson. After all the storms, the volcanic eruptions, and the lightning that split heaven and earth, what remained? Not just Zeus reclaiming Olympus in a blaze of glory. Not just Typhon, the last of the Titans, buried beneath Mount Etna like a forgotten stew left to burn. What lingered was the sense that balance had been restored, but at a steep cost. Yes, Zeus won. But he tasted helplessness. He, who once punished Prometheus for loving humanity, was now saved by that very spirit of compassion and quiet rebellion. Poseidon, once bitter over Olympus's throne, chose to stand beside his brother in crisis, not abandon him. The alliance of gods, fragile as mist, became Olympus's mightiest weapon. And in that final moment, as Zeus hurled the last bolt into Typhon, he was no longer just a god of power. He was a god who knew he could not stand alone. And the Titans? They lost. But their defeat was not in vain. It humbled the young gods. It forced Olympus to look inward. It made even Zeus, king of the skies, reflect. And if you notice, from that moment on, Zeus punished with more thought, boasted less, and on rare nights, listened more. Of course, less is very relative. He was still Zeus, still flirtatious, still moody like April skies. But sometimes, after a feast, he would gaze past the clouds, remembering the cave, the chains, and the truth. Even immortality requires a little humility. A chaotic, beautiful universe, just like us. This tale of the Titans' final rebellion isn't just an afterthought. It's a reminder. The past never stays buried. Old grudges, forgotten wounds, they rise like tidal waves beneath still seas. And it speaks to us, mere mortals living in a fragile world. Never believe you're invincible. But also remember, even the mightiest god once fell. What matters isn't how powerful you are. It's who will come for you when you've lost it all. Maybe you don't hold thunder. Maybe you don't have Poseidon's trident, or Athena's mind. But if you can trust, admit when you're wrong, and rise when it matters, then maybe, just maybe, you're already a little like Zeus, a god among mortals.